Hey, Matthew Fitzpatrick's win at the US Open was super impressive, and I think if you asked him, he would give some of the credit to his newfound power as he's gone up to over 180 miles an hour ball speed in the recent months from a lot of hard speed training. Now, this also helped him hit 17 out of 18 greens on the final round, simply because driving the ball that long and that straight makes it a lot easier to hit the putting surface when you're coming in from a much shorter distance with just a wedge or a 9-iron on every hole. But where exactly does our power come from? Does it come from ground forces, as so many would like you to think? Does it come from the speed of the trunk rotation? Or does it come from the speed of the hands whipping or snapping through the impact zone? Well, we're going to take a little deeper look at it in this video, and I think the answer is going to absolutely shock you, so you do not want to miss this. Hey, thanks for supporting my channel. I'm giving away a free video swing analysis this week. All you have to do to win is by being a subscriber and leaving a comment below. I will select one lucky winner 4 days after this video is published. Okay, in order to better determine where we draw our power from, I've got this swiveling bar stool to give you a demonstration on what happens when you more or less remove your ability to create ground forces. Now, this is not completely eliminating ground forces, because actually my rear end sitting on this seat is actually slightly acting to stabilize me. But for the most part, I'm going to have zero ground forces here as I try to swing. And you'll see something crazy is going to happen. And it's going to really open your eyes onto where we get our power from in a swing. So I'm going to try to take a couple of swings about waist or knee level here. You're going to see, so you see what happened there. As I drew the club back, just the action of taking the club back causes my torso to rotate in the opposite direction. And then, as I try to swing through, I am getting twisted in the wrong direction, which is completely negating my hand speed. So I don't think I'm swinging much more than 40 or 50 miles an hour, maybe, if I'm lucky. So my hand speed has been fairly negated because it hasn't been stabilized by the ground nor multiplied by the turn of my torso, as my torso is turning negatively. Okay, now I'm going to put my feet down for the next example, just barely put my toes on the ground. And what you'll see is at least this is going to help me get rid of the negative torso rotation just barely by touching my toes to the ground. Can eliminate a lot of that reverse torso rotation. And you're starting to see the club be able to be snapped a little bit faster, perhaps 60 or 70 miles an hour now. There is still no torso rotation. And again, the ground forces were just minimal enough to where I didn't move my torso in reverse. And that was enough, just enough to kick up the club head speed, maybe by about 50% or so, I'm going to assume, just by putting my toes barely into the ground. But what you really can't simulate sitting on this stool is the act of shifting weight, which also puts a lot of ground force in through your left foot, helps to stabilize you and speed up the rotation of your body, so that number one, the torso bringing the arms around will speed up your hands, but secondly, you can apply more snapping and whipping force when you are braced. This is why you'll see in the wheelchair long drive, they don't swing with two hands because they'd go flying backwards right out of the wheelchair. But instead, they use the left arm as a brace to establish a brace by gripping outside the rail on the tire almost, and they'll just hit the ball with just the right arm. And some guys are able to hit the ball out there pretty good. I think maybe almost 300 yards or more has been done from sitting in a wheelchair. Just absolutely phenomenal. So while it's very difficult to actually measure these variables scientifically and what their contributions to the overall clubhead speed are, you can certainly make some rough observations about what I'm feeling and seeing out of the speed. So it almost feels like the act of using the ground to brace yourself and step over, therefore encouraging rotation of the trunk, almost acts like a force multiplier. So if I have 0 ground forces, I'm multiplying my hand speed, which might be 10 miles an hour, by 0. However, if I just barely put my feet down, I can really speed up the hand speed significantly, just with the barest minimum of stabilization with the ground, but still yet no torso rotation or really weight shift. And the more you start to add the ground forces, the shift over, which helps to stabilize or brace for the big hit, the more your torso goes around and the more your hand speed will get multiplied. So if you ever have been to a long drive event, like the World Finals in Mesquite, shake hands with some of those long drivers. Their wrists and hands are so thick. They are so strong in the wrists and forearms that you would just have to guess that a lot of speed is coming from the hands and wrists. And yet you could see from my experiment that without some kind of ground force and stabilization, that hand force is going to be pretty much negated. So at the end of the day, what is the answer to the question, where do we draw our power from? And it really is a trick question, because certainly, well, shift and ground forces create power, and torso rotation creates power, and hand speed and snap creates power. They almost exist together. They can't be separate. You cannot get torso rotation and hand speed with no ground forces and shift. You probably cannot get high torso rotation without lots of shift and ground forces going through the front foot. And everything you do with those two moves is simply going to act as a force multiplier on the speed of the hands. And of course, you probably want to put these things in that sequence. You probably want to have ground force create the stabilization and the shift, and then you're going to have the increased acceleration in the turn of the torso, and then finally the hands are going to reach their maximum snapping speed as you go through the ball. Kind of like a sequence, almost like a bullwhip. So keep these things in mind on your mission to create more club head speed and hit the ball longer and straighter than you've ever done before. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I'm Steve, and as usual, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.